public comments, and I'd like to ask the two people who have filled out those cards, Alexis Lance and also Charles Leone, to come on up for their general public comment cards. Right now, come on up. We're starting the meeting right now. Good afternoon.
Great. I'm Alexis Lance with the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I want to thank this committee for your leadership on bicycle issues, especially in regards to the bicycle harassment ordinance. Today, I ask for your attention regarding the issue of hit and runs. Hit and runs affect everyone who bikes, walks, and drives in the city of Los Angeles. According to LAPD...
Also joined by Mr. Labange.
According to LAPD, in 2011 alone, there were over 18,000 hit-and-run collisions in the city. 514 involved a person riding a bicycle, another 759 involved pedestrians, and over 12,000 involved another motor vehicle. Hit-and-run collisions resulted in the death of 36 Angelenos in 2011. 72% of those were people who were walking or riding their bicycles on the streets of Los Angeles at the moment they were hit. Hit-and-runs destroy people's lives and property. Currently, LAPD does not know how many of those 18,000 hit-and-runs were solved or how many were prosecuted. While LAPD has improved its investigation and reporting of traffic crashes, improvement is still greatly needed. And in particular, we would like your help and leadership regarding working with LAPD to report on hit-and-run data and collisions, especially involving people walking and bicycling annually. This data that we received through the Bicycle Task Force, but it's not necessarily out there on their website and public information. To this end, the data needs to be collected on the number of investigations leading to identification of the violator, as well as how many cases lead to legal action. Right now, it's our understanding LAPD does not have this data, although they are working on collecting it. We are also asking to work with you, the mayor's office, the city attorneys, and the city's lobbyists to figure out how we can better address this issue at the legislative level. In Sacramento, it's our understanding that staying at the scene of the crime and being found drunk often has higher penalties than if you were to be found later to have fled the scene. And so we want to look at how can we work together to address that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful public comment.
Honorable Chair of the Transportation Committee and members of this body, my name is Charles Leone and I work for SCIU 721. And I'm here today for the traffic officers that SCIU 721 represents in the city of Los Angeles. As you know, the traffic officers that we have in the city of LA are the front line of public safety and public service. They bring in $130 million of revenue to the city of Los Angeles every single day. When I say that they put their lives on the line, I'm not kidding. As most of you know, in West Los Angeles, there is a facility called the Henry Medina Center, named after one of our traffic officers that was assassinated in the line of duty just for doing their job. I speak before you today because the city of Los Angeles has had a pilot program that has been in existence for the last year. And for this last year, they have done everything in their power to make this pilot program look like it's been a success. The CAO's office has gone out of their way to do everything they can to pad the numbers, to skew the numbers, and as the saying goes, liars figure and figures lie. We understand that there's a budget problem in the city of Los Angeles. What we do not want to have happen is the city of Los Angeles continue to put itself out there to have the liability and the safety issues that exist by extending the part-time pilot program. The numbers are skewed because they try to just look at the tickets by themselves. Our full-timers do so much more than write tickets. And the part-timers that they have, because the nature of the job is so dangerous, as it is, the number one dangerous job in this country is an air traffic controller. Well, traffic controllers, like an air traffic controller, only out on the ground writing tickets. Dealing in this economy every single day, giving somebody a ticket for $60, you're putting your life on the line. That's the reason there's been turnover with the part-timers. A lot of this information is not getting out because there is a concerted effort in the city of Los Angeles to try to have a smoke and mirrors approach by making it look like it's a successful program when it's not. For every dollar that you spend on wages and on benefits for a full-timer, they bring in $3 of revenue to the city of Los Angeles. They bring in $130 million right now, and they could bring so much more if you made all of the part-time traffic officers full-time in the city of Los Angeles. I understand it's a tough economy, but if we really want to bring in some revenue, that's one area where we should do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your comments as well. Madam Clerk, in respect to Mr. Labange, who's his schedule is going to cause him to leave as well. I would like to do items number 4 and 5. If you could read items number 4 first.
Item number 4 is a Labange Garcetti motion instructing DOT report on the feasibility of implementing bicycle stairs on outdoor city stairwells.
And we do have a public opinion card on that one, and if we could ask Alexis to come up, or would you rather wait until after report? Whatever is best for you. Okay, could we have staff come up and explain this, item number 4?
Michelle Maury, Senior Bicycle Coordinator, Department of Transportation. We've looked at the motion, we've reviewed it, we recognize that a lot of agencies are doing these sort of ramps for new facilities as well as retrofitting some old facilities. Certainly something we can follow up on and look at. I have looked into the bicycle plan. It is not a policy in our current bicycle plan to do these sorts of projects, but it is something we can look at, and we have had some preliminary discussions with street services and engineering about these projects.
Thank you. Stay there, please, Mr. Franklin.
Yeah, the city of Vancouver, which is a sister city, I was in at their city hall. They have steps up the hill in the city hall. To the right of the stairway is a little slot. It's like L-shaped steel. And this was Lynn Jewell, who's a resident of the Silver Lake area, Los Feliz on Waverly Drive. She likes to ride her bike to Griffith Park. And instead of going down Los Feliz Boulevard, she goes down the Waverly steps of the historic Hyperion Bridge. It's real simple. I have just a friendly amendment that we direct the Department of Transportation to focus at this particular location first, which is the Hyperion Bridge from the Waverly Viaduct to Riverside Drive. It's about 42 stairs, and come up with a plan and fund the plan out of the money that you have for bicycles. This connects parks. This connects people.
I should mention a couple things. Hyperion Bridge was actually requested by a member of the public for a ramp retrofit many years ago, and we did actually go out there with Bureau Street Services. Because of the grade on Hyperion Bridge, and
This is the stairway. This is public stairs.
and the steps are very steep, it was recommended by Bureau Street Services that we not install a ramp there. There's some.
But they didn't go out with me, and I'm the councilman, and I want to go out with you, and I want to get it done, and I don't want any more excuses. In the areas that we live, whether it's the eastern part of the city, or central part, Echo Park, Silver Lake, there were public stairs because the Pacific Electric used to run nearby. So we've got to take advantage of the public stairs and get people connected. I'd rather have them wheel their bike up by hand between the Riverside Drive area and then get back up to the neighborhood streets as opposed to have them go up narrow Glendale Boulevard.
We're happy to go out there with you and Bureau Street Services so we can talk about this.
Why didn't you guys see this before in your plan?
We did. We investigated this years ago.
No, in the plan, you stated in your opening remarks that it's not in your plan.
It was in the plan. It was a policy that was included in the early drafts of the plan and was actually removed at some point.
Do you know why? Because I think public stairs are very important.
I can speculate, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, save the committee time on speculation. So we'll go out, and if you can hold it for 30 days, we'll come back.
Yeah,
And I would welcome anyone who's interested in bicycles to come and look at that.
that is a friendly amendment, but I would like the public comment card before we voted.
I should also mention, council member, that we are out of our Measure R allocation for this year. We've actually gone through all of last year's and this year's Measure R that's dedicated for bikes.
And your air stops in June 30th?
Yeah.
So by the time we go out, there's enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Hey,
you.
just stay there, would you, because we'll go back to you, too. Alexis, come on up for your comments on this issue.
Thank you. My comments are brief. I just wanted to speak in support of creating ramps on stairwells for bicycles. This is something we have been advocating for with Metro as well, to include with all the transit stations. It's something it's apparently difficult given fire department and codes regarding the width of stairways, but we're hoping will be integrated into new stations. And we want to see with new stairwells that are built, especially around transit or any other type of access, that is provided. Thank you.
I should also mention, in response to Alexis' remarks, that the mayor has introduced a board directive with a number of points to the Metro board, and this is one of the items in the mayor's request that Metro actually retrofit there.
Could we call it, instead of a ramp, because we think of a ramp like this, a wheel rail? A wheel rail, is that, anybody got a better idea?
Wheel well, I think.
A wheel what?
Well, I think.
Wait, we were talking, wait,
No.
what'd you say?
A well, I think.
A wheel well, what was the other one back there? A wheel guide. A wheel guide. Just a wheel, that's all we got. And how wide is a bicycle tire? 2 inches max, unless you're a big one? So just say a 3-inch wheel guide. rail.
Okay, we have his friendly amendment, we've seconded it, and you'll come back in a month with...
We'll meet out there, we'll look at it, see what we can do. Thanks, Alexis.
Okay, everybody in agreement with that? Then we'll move this item forward. Thank you very much. With the friendly amendment, Madam Clerk, and in 30 days, he'll come back with the report.
Okay. Brings us to item 5, which is Labange Englander motion directing DOT to report relative to creating a pilot program of oversized vehicle parking zones along Wilshire Boulevard.
Staff, could you please explain that? And we have a card on this one from Matt Geller, and we'll let him speak after we hear staff report on this. We're now joined by Mr. Koretz. All 5 members of the committee are here.
Good afternoon, Amir Sadati, LADOT. Item number 5 is the motion introduced by Councilmember Labange regarding public safety issues along the Miracle Mile, and I believe there are 2 instructions. One is creating of overheight vehicle zones, and the other instructions is metered parking spaces for commercial vehicles. As I believe we have been in T-Committee on this type of matter before, the council has the authority through a resolution be able to direct the department to provide oversized height vehicle signage on streets, on certain streets. And I think that's probably what the council member is referring in his first paragraph. The second paragraph, currently, the CBC does not allow for commercial vehicles being metered. As part of the budget, the department has put that in, that we look at the possibility of looking at metering commercial zones like cities of New York and other cities have done. So that's an instruction that hasn't happened. We haven't changed that ordinance within the city of Los Angeles yet. So, and I believe we have, the council members asked to come back with some recommendations, but generally just the overview. That's what this motion's about.
Okay, someone had suggested that we should reach out to the county, which has its lots right near there. Have we reached out to the county?
The department hasn't done that. I don't know if the council member has, and he can probably speak to that.
Please, I'm turning it over to Mr. Labange, but it was suggested that the county has opportunities that maybe we should at least reach out to and get an appreciation.
I'm focused on the safety issues related to the mass of the overheight vehicles. I did talk to the Page Museum, and I also am in conversation with the county. But focusing on this and advice from the city attorney, it's a safety issue that I'm looking at here, the mass of overheight vehicles there. I certainly would encourage an opportunity, if they could create it, if it's within the planning and land use zoning code, to allow such of a roundup, if you want to call it.
Great. Mr. City Attorney, any comment on that?
Well, that would be an appropriate.
On the mic.
Sorry. That would be an appropriate action to talk to the county. I think given the problems that the Councilmember Labange has mentioned, getting them off the street, but getting them right where the people are would be highly desirable.
Okay, so then we can do that, and I'll
We
take
certainly
that
can
as a
negotiate with the
friendly,
county.
direction.
I don't think we can negotiate with the county because they're a superior agency, but we could suggest that if they would want to.
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, let's ask Matt Geller to come on up on public comment on this, and I look forward to our action on this. Mr. Geller.
Thank you. My name is Matt Geller. I'm with the Southern California Mobile Food Vendors Association. I want to start with letting you know about a survey I did last summer, asking people if the food trucks weren't there, where would you eat? 20% of the time they would eat at the local area restaurants, 20% of the time they would jump in their car, and 60% of the time they would pack a lunch. The interesting thing was, with the food trucks, the 60 and the 20 would switch. They would 60% of the time eat at the food trucks, and 20% of the time just jump in their car. So, or 20% of the time they would pack a lunch. This has inspired people to eat. This has inspired people to take part in the economy in Los Angeles. The thing that I'm concerned about with this resolution is that you guys are starting with restrictions instead of accommodations. There are issues down there. But you could have started, or we could start with accommodations where the space is a little bit bigger. The parking meter is to make it easier for them to get in and out. You create 8 spaces that are actually on Wilshire that instead of 10, there's only 7. Maybe they have to pay a little bit more between hours as of 10 and 4. But starting with accommodations to allow consumer choice to continue to thrive, I think would be a good place to start, instead of starting with restrictions and putting them back into the neighborhood and having an impact on that neighborhood. Another concern that we have is 114315 of the California Retail Food Code requires them to be within 200 feet of a restroom. If you're going to put them so far back that there are no longer any restrooms for them to use, you're now creating a de facto ban. This is a Los Angeles trend. This is looked at worldwide as one of the most exciting food service things to happen in 50 years. These trucks are built by Los Angelinos. They're used by Los Angelinos. They buy their food from Los Angeles businesses, and they service Los Angelinos and hire Los Angelinos. It's an amazing trend, and I think the city should embrace it and really look at an accommodation model as opposed to a restriction model. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. LeBon.
Well, we have Captain Davis here from Wilshire. I did want to say I've had a failure to work with you, and your push has made it difficult for me to do what I thought I could try to do. I just want to let you know that, Matt, straight out. I work with everybody. Also, Mr. Councilman of the 11th and Councilman of the 5th, I've saw suggestions of you trying to deal with this issue too. So I'm also taking your lead. Safety is my number one issue, and I'm going on that issue of the mass of overhyped vehicles. I would welcome if the county or other entities would want to create a corral. That's something that is that's possible if the zoning code allows it. But safety of the mass is what is my concern here, and I'd like to give a little time to Captain Eric Davis, who I just might add was the lead 5 years ago in suppression of the fire in Griffith Park as we come up on that anniversary. I always see him. I want to let him know what a great job he did. He saved the merry-go-round.
Great.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Captain.
Good afternoon. Thank you. As Councilman pointed out, a few years ago, we had some issues on along Wilshire Boulevard that tied to the catering trucks, and Mr. Geller did reach out, and we tried to work out some resolutions. However, as time has gone by, really over the last 2 years, the problem is starting to venture. It's not just the trucks themselves. As we think we can recognize, it's becoming a sort of a fabric of LA. The key is the safety issues, and I'm just voicing concerns that have been expressed to me by the general public. Traffic issues, because now we have the trucks, because of the size of the trucks, that are now starting to encroach into the roadway, causing blind spots for oncoming vehicles. You're starting to see more of the impact of where vehicles are starting to swerve into other lanes to avoid the catering trucks. And then we're also dealing with, and that I don't have anecdotal information here present, but our traffic, in talking to our traffic divisions that have been looking at this issue, now it comes time to the complaints of whether traffic signals are visible as vehicles come to the traffic signals.
And that being said as well, that's an issue that's really focused on, and I would look forward to working with everybody to try to find resolution. Also, our Department of Transportation, just prior to this, was very forthright in trying to create meter space. As mentioned, you enlarge the space, what the impact that has on the overall parking plan, etc. But I would happy to see if we could, and I just, in doing research with our department, Mr. Sadati did mention that the vehicle code doesn't allow creating what I call side space. Near side, far side, and near side would be as if you're approaching to the tri-light, the traffic signal is right there. Far side is away. We don't want to block any, particularly at Spalding and near Ogden in that particular area. Furthermore, on the safety issue that is there, if we could look at some of these options, I would certainly be happy to try to find resolution. Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, I was going to ask, if I could, Mr. Geller, increasing the space, making larger spaces, what do you do about the problem of these food trucks getting their people to park there all day long until that truck comes? You'd be taking away, how do you respond to that? How do you?
Well, when you have service starting at 10, one of the, sorry, if you are going to do a commercial type of vehicle space, then you, so then,
Yeah.
but you are working on doing on the side streets.
Well, it depends on whether they're residential or not. One of the problems is Sacramento. Unless there's a change in the law that allows us to actually set aside spaces, that's something that you can do up in Sacramento.
So, I'm sorry, I'm unclear. I thought that, excuse me, Councilman, that you were thinking about eliminating them from Wilshire, but then giving them side street access.
That is true, but in reforming by the department, they said this is one issue that I have to look at. So we are looking at the safety issue, and at the same time, too, we're looking for opportunity, and it may take legislation to try to find it. But safety is number one. Wilshire Boulevard is the number one bus street west of Manhattan, and there's many, many buses that come down. There are bigger buses now. There's impacts that could take place, and I'm absolutely concerned about safety. And with this tool, why this was created is because of that. I know on Talmadge Street near Russell Avenue, there's an overnight tractor trailer that parks there that blocks the stop sign, which is why you have this overheight restriction in these particular areas near the stops, etc. But, Mr. Chair, if we could just move forward on this, and then I will be working with the community. We are going to post it for the safety reasons on Wilshire and try to resolve it. Not all of Wilshire, but the signal light area near Spalding, near Ogden, near Curzon, and much of the short strips of Wilshire Boulevard.
Mr. Koretz? No comment. Mr. Parks?
Let me just verify, the working group you put together will devise a plan and bring it back, or?
Well, in working with the department and taking the city attorney's advice, right now, what we could do to try to deal with safety is use the tool that others have used of the overheight vehicle ban. And the area that is non-signalized could possibly have an open area as it is now, but strictly, which would be east of Spalding on the south side of the street. But on the areas where it's impacted, I want to see recommendations and move forward by the department.
Okay. Just like we had the one recently, like I said, I don't have a clue about what these issues are on Wilshire, but I do have a concern if that we are going to post something and create restrictions before we have a working relationship. And if we, like we did with Mr. Koretz's issue the other day, if DOT and people can get together and figure out what serves the people that are eating there, serves the people that are bringing the food there, and serves the traffic issue, that's what I would look for.
I understand, but as the councilman of the district, I'm concerned about the safety. And listening to the city attorney.
All I'm saying is what my vote is.
I got that, Mr. Parks. I understand that, and I haven't been able to find a resolution with the catering truck, some catering truck advocates have found resolution, but in particular, your advocacy hasn't found a way for me as a councilman to say we can find a safe thing. So I would like to see this posted where it's recommended by the Department of Transportation and the Police Department. And I'll be happy to work with the community to find resolutions. But the tough question that we have ourselves is the issue of the overheight vehicles for safety. And there will be an incident that will be a challenge to us that we didn't take an action. So that's why using this tool, again, that I learned from this committee, because I think I first brought this issue up many years ago, and 2 years ago. And so now, that being said, the time has come to move.
Can I clarify, Mr. Chair and Councilman, for the first part of the motion, when you're saying you want to establish the overheight zone at those locations, we want to move forward with that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll prepare the resolution that you need to establish that, so we'll do that. On the
I need a
second,
resolution to do that, can't just request it.
right, and I'll take care of that.
The law requires you to do that.
Yes. And on the second part where you're talking about the meter spaces for commercial, since we can't do that, are we putting that on hold until you meet with community and
Well, I
figure
think
out
we
the
should
side?
find out, and I want to hear a recommendation of the Department of Transportation. I could see an opportunity that you have franchise opportunities for taxis, you have a franchise opportunities for food vehicles, if that's desired by the city.
So just a couple of points, Councilmember. As a city, we actually went through a very extensive exercise on Wilshire when it became the anti-gridlock zone. So the department met with UPS, FedEx, post office. We actually moved the post boxes from Wilshire to all the side streets because there's an anti-gridlock zones on Wilshire, as you know. As part of that process, we went block by block and installed commercial and passenger loading zones on all the side streets, including Spalding, Hauser, and so forth. So that exercise has already happened. For us to go back as part of the second part of your motion to see if there's additional commercial loading to be installed, and that takes away from the parking supply of the businesses and neighbors and so forth, and we can do that as a process, but what I'm saying is right now, it's not reserved. Commercial loading in the city is the purpose of loading and unloading
Only.
only.
Passengers.
It's not we don't have a current legislation to say reserved for a catering truck, which I think is what you were suggesting possibly, and that will require, as Mr. Nagel mentioned.
You're the department. You got to think how to resolve this, an emerging issue, because what is the meter there in the first place for? I'm interested in the safety. That's what I'm bringing to our attention.
I understand.
The commander of police for the area is interested in the safety. We see vehicles parked on the curb, up onto the curb. We see a low overheight, and I'm just saying, if we don't address the safety, it's an issue. Now, if the members would feel safer to continue this 30 days, we'll continue to work on it, but I think when I see a safety problem, I want to deal with it.
Mr. Weezer, do you want to say anything? Okay, let me see if this will make some sense. The motion states, Mr. Labange, that an ongoing concerns regarding public safety is associated with the parking of commercial vehicles along Miracle Mile. The large size of some vehicles, coupled with the extended length of time in which they are parked along Wilshire Boulevard, prevents drivers and pedestrians from having a clear line of sight down the street and the crosswalk area, according to the captain as well. This motion states that CD4 will work with the LADOT, the LAPD, the Miracle Mile Chamber of Commerce, the Midwest City Neighborhood Council, the Miracle Mile Residents Association, the Mobile Food Truck Association, to implement this project. And as the city attorney was talking, I would like also an outreach to the county to see what flexibility there might be developed with the county that could possibly help us resolve this. And with Mr. Labange's discussion there, can we bring back an updated analysis of things within 30 days to meet what he would like to see done, or do you need more time?
No, I'm going to go 45 days because of the end of the year.
All right, so
With
he's
the
saying,
budget coming up, et cetera.
you want 45 days?
Right, I'll come back.
As a friendly amendment in
Right.
45 days,
We'll
come
have
back to
graphs and
that.
maps.
And everybody's nodding their heads on that. Okay, so then we'll continue this with those instructions to come back with that information in 45 days. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? That's unanimous on that, Madam
Thank you.
Clerk, to move it in that direction. I appreciate everybody's comment on that. If we could, there is, I would...
Chair, I have a redistricting meeting. Can I depart? Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Labange, for being here. We will go now to the verbal report, item number 6.
Can we do two?
Yeah, sure.
We can do two, then that's the only one I got.
You want to do that right now?
Yeah, and then because I got to leave a little bit.
Okay, so first let's do special one on consent, if that works for people. Unless we see a Brian Dyer here. Is he still here? Do you want to speak on that, Brian?
Okay,
Because you filled out a card.
special item number 1 is a DOT report and resolution relative to the renewal of temporary preferential parking districts for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Sorry, Mr. Labange is not here. He's my council representative. Honorable Chairman.
Here in the back of the room.
Honorable Chairman and committee members in the body, I live in what is now called Yucca Village, used to be called Yucca Corridor. We have 6 by 2 block area with 210 parking spaces in it. In 2004, I started a petition to get parking district there. At the same time, my neighbors up north, Parking District 99, started their petition. I was told by the Department of Transportation at the committee meeting that our cars, 2 blocks south of Franklin, were used to establish the need for parking district number 99. At that meeting, I said, so you recognize our need? And they said yes. And I said, you're denying our benefits. We cannot ask for a permit parking in 99, even though it was used to establish 99. It was said yes. I started a new petition again for an extension of parking district 99. Now, the Department of Transportation apparently didn't remember that when it was reduced from a staff of 12 to 2. I'm not blaming the Department of Transportation department, but it was reduced to number 2. They added 2 streets on Franklin, south of Franklin, for parking district 64, which is south of Sunset Boulevard. So basically, we have in Yucca Corridor those 210 spaces. If those are used by clubbers and other people, we are then forced to go down half a mile to a mile to find any other kind of parking in the area. I'm willing to work with that. My basic question is, signatures that I've already gathered for 99, are those transferable? I asked the Department of Transportation a year ago when they were looking at parking District 64 of including us in that. My preference would be 99, which is just across the street. But that doesn't seem possible at this state. So if it were 64, are those signatures for 99 that I established and have been working on to stop 3 years ago when 64 was up, are those transferable? Since the issue is parking, it's not necessarily parking districts.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Mr. Labange is in the room if he wants to respond to that. And can we also ask a quick report, because it is a special and we want to move forward with it? Is there any staff quick response to this and to Mr. Labange who's here to hear this comment?
Thank you, and yes, we actually definitely will work with Brian right now, or I'm joined here with Tamara Martin. I don't have the specifics that Mr. Dyer has mentioned, but I don't believe that particular one is in this package.
It is not. He is talking about an expansion of an existing permanent District 64.
It's not part of the approval, but we will exchange cards and talk outside if he has the time.
It's contingent on the renewal. I've never seen the renewal for 64 nor 99 come up in committee, and I've been waiting 7 years.
All right, well, this is the first time that I've had this my attention, but we have a great deputy from Mr. Garcetti who's here. Marcel's going to take this up, too, because the border changes from Yucca to Franklin.
Excuse me, sir, can you state your name for the record, please?
I'm a friend of Jose Huiza. Calabang.
Okay. Well, thank you on that. Can we move forward with this,
We'll talk-
colleagues?
It's not part of this package. It's not part of this package.
Second, Mr. Park? Okay, unanimous with the committee. Thank you much, and I look forward to meeting with Brian right now to discuss that issue there. Okay. Mr. Parks is also is leaving for somewhere, so I want to move quickly on item number 2, and I have a bunch of cards on this one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. Let staff come up real quickly, tell us what it is, Madam Clerk, and then we'll go to the cards and then some action.
Item number 2 is a CAO and Department of Transportation reports relative to the resolution authority for the creation of a full-time pedestrian coordinator position pursuant to a Garcetti Parks motion.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Jaime de la Vega, LADOT. Before you have a request the department's request is actually to hire 2 positions. One is a full-time pedestrian coordinator, and the second would be a full-time assistant pedestrian coordinator. The 2 functions that we envision are different. The more senior position would lead the program and develop a pedestrian master plan per the council's direction, and they would be primarily focused on external relations and general oversight of the plan. The second position that we requested would be more technical in nature and would do a lot of statistical analysis and GIS work, in addition to helping to co-author the plan. Initially, we requested that these positions be hired by contract. We understand the Personnel Department has recommended hiring these positions in-house. We support that recommendation as well. I believe the report you have before you from the CAO only recommends hiring one of the 2 positions. We'd respectfully request that the committee recommend to the full council hiring of 2 positions. Both these positions be special funded with no general fund impact. And Lon Wynn from my staff is also here if you have additional detailed questions.
Mr. Parks. Yeah. I just, the thing is, I think it's a good idea, and the fact of, particularly with the safe routes to school and the number of schools that have been built in the city and concentrated in certain areas. The couple of concerns I have, I think it's an appropriate use of funds for the study, and I also think that it would be appropriate to hire 1 position now and a second one after the study's done, so you know what those positions should be doing. The major concern I have is I don't think it's an appropriate use of Measure R local return for the bodies. I think that if we continue to chip away at Measure R, we will end up like Prop A and C, and pretty soon we'll have deficits because of the ongoing costs. And I think what we worked very hard on, I know that there's a 10% overhead figure in there, and we got 10% for PEDs and and bikes. But I think I would not even want to get close to where, on an annual basis, we are doing what we had to do a couple of years ago with A and C to start reducing the personnel impact. And so I think it's a good idea. Again, I support one position now and one after the study, but I just think it's the wrong source of money, because it'd be very easy to move up to that 10% and beyond. You know, we had to struggle during last year's budget. CAO and others tried to put, 12 positions in Measure R, and we're able to push it back and say you can fund their work if they work on Measure R projects, but you don't just put 12 people on Measure R, because then we're going down that same slope. So that's my concerns. I just think that it's one position. It should be in the general fund, but not in Measure R, because that is such a small amount of money that each year we should come away with it, with some infrastructure and some accomplishments, and not just saying that we hired 2 people or 3, and pretty soon we're in deficit again.
Right. Yeah, I understand and respect that position, Councilman. The department's proposal in the near term was to use special funds in recognition of the general fund challenge facing the council and mayor. Obviously, in the long term, we would be supportive of funding both positions through the general fund.
Yeah. That's my concern.
Any other comments from colleagues at the moment? Well, then, at that point, let's have the public comment and just come to the side for a second, and we'll ask from Mr. Garcetti's office. Is that Marcel? Come on up. Deborah Murphy. Come on up. Jessica Meany. If I pronounced that right. And Alexis. Okay. Go first.
Marcel Porras, Senior Planning and Economic Development Deputy for Council Member Garcetti. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Pedestrian Coordinator position, actually the DOT recommendation to fund 2 positions. Our experience, my personal experience working with Councilmember Garcetti, starting off in the transportation policy area, working closely with DOT. I've seen kind of the evolution of DOT, focusing on first bike planning, and now getting into and all the achievements, successes that we've had there. I think couldn't have been done without the dedicated bicycle staff. I think now, as we're looking at shifting towards more built out of our transportation infrastructure, Measure R, TOD planning, I think that focusing not only on safe routes to school and like a strategic plan, but also looking at other issues facing pedestrians. Because as you know, we all walk in the city, whether or not it's the first part of our transit trip, whether it's walking to our car, getting off our bike, walking to work, walking in a transit station. I think this is the one thing that all Angelinos do. So I think it's vital that we make sure to address and support pedestrian planning staff at DOT that will not only work with the council offices on moving forward and getting securing safe routes to school grants, but also in working with our communities. I know what really kind of galvanized Councilmember Garcetti in introducing the motion for the pedestrian coordinator was some fatalities that happened in our district around pedestrian issues. The amount of money that's been set aside that council has already made to fund pedestrian projects has been sitting. We just heard, I think Michelle Mowry say that DOT has already spent all of the bike Measure R money that's been set aside. We haven't even begun to look at the Measure R PED funding. So I think it's imperative that we move forward with 2 positions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
Good day. I'm Deborah Murphy. I live in the Silver Lake area. I'm chair of the city's Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the last 14 years, as well as the founder of Los Angeles Walks, a pedestrian advocacy group, started the same year. We've had great support on the bike issues. Michelle's been on staff here for 17 years as a bike coordinator. We're really way behind on the pedestrian side of things. We have a lot of people out in the community that are raising issues of pedestrian safety. We see articles almost every day in some newspaper, on a blog, somewhere about a crash, whether it's a fatality or an injury. We can't let this continue. We have to get on board with how other cities are doing this. They have, major cities have dedicated staff to looking at pedestrian issues, particularly the safety issues, along with access to transit and other modes of transportation. We all talk about the 5 E's. We have engineering, education, enforcement, encouragement, and evaluation. That cannot only be one person's responsibility. We need 2 people to do this. We have the Safe Routes to School strategic plan for one staff person to coordinate, and then all the data that needs to be developed so that we can set priorities for what projects need to get built and implemented. Without that kind of data, we're going to be just randomly selecting projects. We need to have good information in front of us. We have a lot of staff and volunteers who work on pedestrian safety issues like myself, who are volunteers. We spend 10, 20 hours a week trying to do these kinds of things because we really don't have a staff person in Los Angeles who the public can turn to and address these concerns and issues, and preventing crashes, but also dealing with ones that are happening and how to look to solutions to those challenges.
Thank you very much for that articulation as well. Appreciate that. Jessica Maney?
Yep, Jessica Meany. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Jessica Meany, and I'm the California advocacy organizer for a nonprofit called the Safe Routes to School National Partnership. I'm really pleased that the City of LA is talking about this. I'm here to support 2 pedestrian coordinator positions. I urge your leadership to act and move. It's high time that the City of Los Angeles started addressing pedestrian safety with staff resources and tools so we can make our streets safer for all. On April 1st, 2011, the City of Los Angeles allocated $1.2 million to create a citywide Safe Routes to School plan, and I'm really troubled that no action has been taken to date to address this. In fact, 2 weeks ago, 2 students were hit on their way home from school in Studio City at a school that was awarded Safe Routes to School grant in 2007. That has not been spent yet. This is outrageous. We have children who are dying on their way home from schools. I urge you to take action to make this happen. Let's spend the Safe Routes to School dollars we've been awarded, make sure it's all being spent, and let's have a framework to address this. 25% of all trips in Los Angeles County are being done walking, yet we have no pedestrian resources to address this safety. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that as well. Please.
Good afternoon, Alexis Lance, Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. We're encouraged to see the city moving forward with the hiring process to bring on dedicated staff to begin to address pedestrian issues. As we expand our transit network and build out our bicycle network, we need to also ensure our city becomes safer and more walkable because everybody walks in Los Angeles. We hope this staff position will work closely with the Bikeway team, not only on grants, but on the coordinating of the implementation of improvements, both with bicycle projects, transit projects, and is comprehensive. Given the breadth of the issues regarding the safety of people walking and the ADA mobility and access issues, we feel there is a need for more than one staff person. This team needs to be responsive not only to the Safe Routes to School issues, but the community regarding general pedestrian safety issues. We understand also, as we're going into, well, in addition to the Safe Routes to School plan, we need to understand the funding that's been allocated. As Jessica mentioned, Safe Routes to School funds have been awarded, call for project funds have been awarded, yet we don't understand visually where these projects have been awarded, what improvements are coming, and when they will be done. So if we could have a visual map from staff that shows sort of the whole city and where these projects are planned for, that I think would provide the public and all of you a better understanding of where we are with our transportation dollars. And as this is budget season, we feel it's important to understand what the total transportation budget is and how much is currently and historically been allocated to bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Additionally, the 10% measure are set aside for bicycle and pedestrian improvements should be a minimum, not a cap. So we hope the city will further prioritize funding for bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And this idea of a pedestrian coordinator has been floating around since the committee approved it in concept in the Safe Routes to School strategic plan about a year ago. So I'm excited that we're moving forward with it. This is a step in the right direction. Mr. Parks had mentioned, and if I could just mention it from the report that was given to us, to provide DOT with maximum flexibility, the CAO recommends that one position in the exempt class of project coordinator be provided, but at this time, a second position for assistant coordinator is not recommended. However, creation of the strategic plan is appropriate work for a contractor, and DOT should be allowed to consider hiring a contractor to complete the plan. Does CEO want to add to that comment? I know that the department is suggesting two out the gate. Mr. Parks is pretty much going along with the CAO recommendation, and that's kind of maybe I'm thinking the right strategy, but I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, David Hirano from the Office of CAO. Councilmember, let me be clear. We did evaluate the proposal, and we are supportive of establishing an office of this nature, especially given all the testimony you've heard. We know these times are tough as well, and for us to offer that kind of support, you know that we have to believe in the importance of the function. However, in our review, we could not come before you and honestly support the immediate creation of two new positions based upon the information we were looking at. We can obviously support the creation of one position. We do want to provide DOT the ability to be as flexible as possible in attaining a person who can effectively do the job with appropriate qualifications. So we have made the recommendation that that position be exempted and provide a reasonable salary recommendation as well. If you desire to add a second position, at this point we will not object, but we cannot at this point recommend it based upon the facts that have been presented to us.
And if the facts are presented and time goes on, when could you come back and let us know? If I don't want to close the door completely, but I want to respect your positioning.
We wouldn't want you to close the door completely either. What we would suggest is that we get the person in, that they have a conversation with the general manager, develop a work plan, and that we evaluate the need to move forward with a second position at that point. Whether it's a second position for a contractor or both, but that when the work plan is better fleshed out, that we can better evaluate the need for additional resources.
Please.
Yeah, my concern about that approach and the reason we asked for two positions is we agree with the CAO that the coordinator should develop a work program. Parallel to that process, we need an analyst who has specific GIS and statistical skills to look at the existing data, both in the current year and historically, be able to identify statistically where we have the biggest problems, the biggest safety risks in this city, and use that information to inform the development of the plan and ultimately the prioritization of projects and policies that we're going to recommend to this committee and to the full council. I think if you hire only one person and the senior person and they develop a work plan, it'll only be partially informed by data and analysis, and I think that would be a disservice to the council's desire to improve pedestrian safety and develop a comprehensive master plan.
Okay, one thing I want to make sure is that when you heard one of the public speakers, Alexis, talk about a big map of putting it all out there, can we get that map right away?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the point, Councilman. You know, in our current pedestrian unit, we have excellent engineers that are able to design and implement projects in partnership with our field crews. We need additional capacity in that unit to do the analytical work, for example, the mapping functions. So, I mean, we could get that over time. It's not going to be in the near term. That's specifically why we asked for the assistant coordinator position.
And Councilmember, I would add that there is a little bit of a difference between someone with an analytical capability to crunch numbers and help design programs, and someone who actually has the capacity to do GIS work and mapping work. Those are two separate disciplines altogether, and we reflect that in our classification structure, because we have GIS specialists and analysts, and we have management analysts and so forth. So I think there is, we understand that where the general manager would like to go and his need, but it's not clear to us yet how this workload will be divided and how it will be parceled out. We do have significant resources in the city on the GIS side and on analytical side, so I think that's the kind of source of our caution at this point. We would like to see it better fleshed out, but if it's your desire to have two positions, we're okay with that too.
And better flesh out could take what, how long would you think?
Well, that would really be up to the department once they got as to how fast they wanted to move. We have had some dialogue with the department over the last several months. That hasn't helped us in terms of our clarity. So we would hope that somebody new coming in the situation might help with that clarity.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, council members, speaking from the trenches, Lon Nguyen of DOT staff. Right now, we really have an opportunity. There is so much in the community, so much interest in the federal level and the state level for Safe Routes to School, as you know.
Yeah.
In the last 9 rounds of state Safe Routes to School funding and 3 rounds of federal Safe Routes to School funding, we barely broke 5%. We only received 5% of the possible monies that were available out there. That 5% amounts to about $23.5 million. I think that from the trenches, when we have a plan, when we're asked to perform something like create a map, do this, do that, the sheer amount of time it takes in order to do this with very talented people, it's just astronomical. It'll take 20 hours just to produce something that can be consumed. You know, the easier it is to read, the harder it was to produce. So it just takes an enormous amount of time to provide you with information that you can use in order to make decisions. So, again, speaking from the trenches, I think that 2 positions would really be helpful in that one does work at the policy and the macro level, and one works more at the micro level, and the 2 would be very synergetic in order to provide information that this committee would need in order to move forward.
Yeah, and can I add to that, Mr. Chairman?
I haven't started yet.
Can I just add to that, Mr. Chairman? You know, I think really the question for the committee and the council is the pace of change you want to see. You know, frequently you'll hear from us, we can only do 4 projects. And usually each council member will have a dozen projects they want to see implemented. The more you staff this function, the more we'll be able to serve and support you in your desire to see those safety improvements happen in a timely manner within your districts.
Thank you.
I actually don't have any questions, but based on what we've heard, I'm convinced that the 2 positions are worth it. So I'll make the motion that we fund these 2 positions at this
Hearing
time.
that, Mr. Weezer, you haven't spoken.
I just want to second that.
You'll second that motion. Okay, how does that conflict with where the CAO is recommending? I mean, if he does it now or later or whatever, he would probably do it later, but I'm expecting your report too.
Well, we believe in the importance of this function, and we believe that there's a need to add dedicated resources at this time to do this work. Whether it's 1 or 2, we're supportive of that. So you asked for our best opinion. We put it in writing. We believe that 1 position is very well worthwhile at this point and justified. We're hesitating on the second one, but if you believe that there is a need for a second position, we're not going to oppose that. It would be relatively consistent with our position.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Sure, Mr. Parks.
What is the timing on hiring the 1 position?
If you approve this, and I think it has to go to Personnel Committee as well, and then the council, then the department would have to submit a request for exemption of the position to the mayor's office and the Personnel Department. That process would take a couple weeks, and then head back up here to, believe the Personnel Committee for review and approval, and then council, and then they can hire the person.
Before the end of the fiscal year?
It is possible to do that before the end of the fiscal year, and then the department would have to determine and go through a process to determine who they want to hire.
And then how long will it take for to complete the specific plan, strategic plan?
We believe the initial first phase of that plan would take 1 year. So we would come back in a year's time with a prioritized recommended list of our first top 100 school locations.
And then let me ask the CEO, is this also in the proposal for next year's budget, the 12-13 budget?
Councilman, I can't actually answer that question directly, but what I can tell you is I was going to actually offer a clarification to a point you made earlier. If you choose to fund this out of Measure R, there's plenty of room under the admin cap. If you choose to fund it out of general fund, we respect that too, but there is plenty of room. So.
But what is, you don't know, or you're not at liberty to say whether it's...
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to say. I can discuss that with you on the 20th.
Okay, this has been a very healthy discussion, and I can tell you as a pedestrian a lot, and appreciating cyclists, we really need to flesh this out. So I will support the motion for the 2 slots to go forward. So let's just go on the record again. Those in favor of the 2 slots?
Aye.
Mr. Park? No. Mr. Weezer, yes, and I'll say yes. We'll go forward with it. Move it to the to the Personnel Committee, and let's get it before the full council.
And could we ask you to ask the CEO to look at another source of funding?
Other than Measure R?
Yeah.
Sure. Did you want it out of the general fund, or you want us to try to identify something else?
Maybe the only pot of money, but I'd hate to bog down Measure R local return with personnel. I think from what I understood that we were trying to do we used funding of personnel that worked on Measure R projects.
Okay, so let me see if I can help with that. Currently, the council adopted a 10% cap on ongoing administrative costs coming from Measure R. Currently, the only thing that we're counting against that cap are 3 positions for the department. Total value of those positions, direct salary and indirect, is a little bit under $500,000.
Yeah, but they're working on Measure R.
They are working on Measure R. They're administration positions, accounting position, I think a clerical position. If you look at the $35 million in annual receipts that we're getting from Measure R, the 10% admin cap that we've self-imposed would be $3.5 million.
But there's also those 12 positions that we're funding that also work on Measure R.
Those 12 positions did not get added to the budget that way. They got added to the budget to work on projects, and they are directly billing
I know, but I'm
projects.
saying, but there's coming out of Measure R. We're paying for
They
their
are-
salary when they work on Measure R projects.
Through the projects, yes,
So
but
there's
they do
more
not.
than just the 3.
But they do not count against the administrative cap.
Well, but I'm saying, the money does, though. I mean, we're spending money on those 12 positions when they work on Measure R projects.
And those are getting counted against the actual projects, budgets, not against the
But we're paying
admin cap.
personnel costs, whether
Or-
we count it that way.
And we're paying for personnel costs also in street services to do access ramps, sir.
Yeah.
So, and those are getting counted against the access ramp allocation as well, so.
But I have
But-
to look at, evaluate that whole issue of general fund and protect, measure our local return so we can get as much projects as we can.
As you know, if you want to take the money from the general fund, we can, and that's just a discussion of priorities. And if you view this as high enough priority to spend general fund money on it, we most certainly can. That's not a problem. But it's also,
I'll
I
use the
believe it's also
advocacy
a
of the department for those 2 spots to move forward with it. But from my perspective, we need to have done a lot more on pedestrians by this time, so anything we can do to move forward with it will be greatly appreciated. And hearing staff saying it'll take a year to get it all fleshed out, I'm much in support of that. So we have a motion, we have a vote on it, so let's take it to the next level now.
May I ask for clarification? I understand Mr. Parks' concerns. Is it the will of the committee that we look for something additional besides Measure R, or did you want to add a Measure R?
Well, just give it some more fleshed out on that. I mean, we'll go either way, the 3 of us, obviously. So let's see if that option that Mr. Parks is suggesting is real or not within the context of the budget, okay? All right, now, Mr. Parks is leaving, and I thank him very much for being here. And I know that Mr. Weezer has to leave, too, and I know we have a report on the whole taxi cab situation by our general manager. So if I could move item number 3 next.
Item number 3 is a Weezer-Rosendahl resolution prohibiting parking of vehicles that are in excess of 22 feet in length and over 84 inches in height during the hours of 10 p.m. through 5 a.m. on both sides of the 5700 and 5800 blocks of Monterey Road.
And Mr. Weezer, if you want to make any comment, we don't need to hear from staff. We could move forward with this.
I'd just like to move it if there's no objection.
Is there any objections? No. Unanimously, we will move this forward. Motion number 3. Okay. And now, if I could, and I apologize for the commissioner, but I'd love for the commissioner to listen to this before you come up and speak. So we've just taken care of item number 3, and that is recommend approval of the resolution. And so we've gone forward with that. Now we will go quickly to the verbal report, item number 6, and I want to thank the General Manager for so quickly coming back with this to give us an update on the Taxi Cab Commission, the frequency of the board meetings, and the action that improves the commission, and then we'll ask the potential commissioner to come up and speak. Did I cover it enough?
You covered it perfectly.
Okay, thank you so much. Please.
Jaime de la Vega, DOT, Amir Sadati from my staff is with me. Also, Dorothy Tate, if you could come to the table, please. Dorothy, as you may know, is the Taxi Cab Commission Secretary, and she can give you a brief overview on meetings, how often they meet, what they cover, et cetera. Just by way of background, this commission was established by the council in 1998. Previously, all matters under the Taxi Cab Commission were also under the Transportation Commission's authority, and the council in 1998 decided to split the functions.
Good afternoon, I'm Dorothy Tate, Department of Transportation.
Hi, Dorothy.
Hi. Just to inform you, the Taxi Cab Commission meets once a month, and from the period of July 2011 through March of this year, they've had scheduled 9 meetings, 4 were confirmed, and 5 were canceled, and they're basically canceled due to the unavailability of the commissioners.
Yeah, thank you, and I think just coming back, I sit on that commission as well, representing the general manager, and there are a lot of issues relating to the taxi industry, permits. We have board orders, there's rules that needs to go through them as far as what the regards to safety issues with the taxis, with regard to the permitting process, and also we have an appeal process where we go through where the commission actually listens to either permits that have been denied, and there's a request for an appeal. So it is an important function for the department for what we do for the vehicle for hire, especially taxi. So it's just important for us to make sure that we do have the meetings in order to conduct the business that's needed to be done.
If I could ask the general manager this question, since there's been difficulty getting a quorum and this and that, do you feel comfortable with our new commissioner coming in and others that we will be able to have a quorum and get business done? That's my biggest concern.
Yes, I think the department's optimistic that we'll be able to have more frequent meetings.
Great. Colleagues, any comments or questions on this?
What's the reason for the difficulty that we've had in the past, and are similar boards like Transportation experiencing this problem?
No, Transportation Commission, most of the members are available on a regular basis.
Now, what's been the cause of this difficulty?
Well, I think that's probably a question for them, council member, but as staff, we give adequate notice. We provide dates in advance. Dorothy has provided an annual calendar of the event, so all the commissioners actually know in advance where the regular scheduled meetings are, and if there are special meetings, we provide as much adequate notice. So what happens is what Ms. Tate does is she actually polls the commissioners to say the upcoming meeting is coming up, will you be available to attend, and we have these items that are agendized, and then she'll get a reply saying, I'm sorry, I'm not able to make it, and because of the numbers, unfortunately, we would have to cancel meetings because of a lack of quorum. So there is a lot of, I think, outreach on our side to make sure we get it, but the specific reasons, I believe that's something that the commissioners, or we're not as staff able to find out.
I mean, it's hard to speculate, but could it be that we've selected commissioners that have too many other obligations and can't actually serve adequately in this position?
Yeah, I don't know if we're able to answer that question. We don't have any information on that.
Okay.
What's the question? Any other comments from anybody else?
It may be two things. They're busy, but at the same time, we're reaching out. But the subject matter of the day, what's being agendized, are these, there's important issues that are to be voted upon, correct, or not?
Yeah, I think the service side is.
I'm sorry, but if they're just reports on items, but if they're actually involved and engaged and there's interesting things that they will be voting on, I think there's more of a motivation to attend.
Yeah.
Correct?
Well, I think every meeting there are important issues. Really, it's impacts on the drivers. You know, in some cases, the department's made recommendations for discipline or denial of a permit, and the driver, obviously, applicant has an interest in having that adjudicated as quickly as possible. In other cases, we're recommending rate increases. For example, when oil prices go up and gas prices go up, the drivers have to bear the burden of that additional fuel cost, and frequently we'll recommend a higher rate to mitigate that. And if we're unable to have the commission meet and act, we're not able to legally raise those rates to help the drivers.
Okay, and as we all know, that we took an item and approved it unanimously in council today about taxi cabs, and that was basically the frustration that they could never get a quorum, and so we got into it. So hopefully, by being on the record like this, it becomes clear to any potential future commissioners the importance of their commission. So thank you very much for your report. And if I could ask the clerk to read item number 1, which is the last one left, correct?
Yes. Item number 1 is communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Mr. Permakian to the Board of Taxi Cab Commissioners for the term ending June 30th, 2013, to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Ms. Armodian.
Well, good afternoon, and I wanted you to see the breadth of what we do in this committee, and I appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you want to do as a commissioner.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, Honorable Committee. My first name is Monpre, last name Pomakian. I'm a proud resident of the city of over 30 years. Currently work as an Assistant General Counsel with LA Unified School District. And I certainly am honored to have been nominated by the Mayor's office for this position. I've certainly heard the concerns and the issues that have plagued the Commission, Taxi Cab Commission, for the last year. I can assure you that my intention would be to make every effort to be involved, to attend all meetings, and to handle the position of commissioner on that particular commission if I am approved by the City Council.
When you reviewed the commission, took a look at it before you obviously stepped into the plate, we're extremely grateful you're willing to do it. What did you see within that commission that made you feel that it would be something you'd like to work on, or that you vision happening, or your time and energy spent?
I think the Taxi Cab Commission certainly does provide an important role within the Department of Transportation, both in an advisory capacity and as a quasi-judicial capacity, if you will, based on the issue of permits for operators and drivers. So I think it is an important commission within the city, and I feel that it would be an important position for me to move into this area of public service and at this time, at this stage in my career, and I hopefully will give back to this great city.
Thank you very much for that. Colleagues, any comments, questions? Please, Mr. Correct.
I mean, as you're probably aware, historically, every appointee gets approved. We really don't have much oversight. We have the oversight. We don't use it very often. My concern in this particular situation is we have a body that doesn't meet very often. We can only speculate on why that is, and it could be really one of two things: lack of great on-target interest and connection to the subject matter, and having too busy a schedule. And I'm concerned about that in your case. I don't know you at all, but I'm looking at your resume. You look like you've done and are doing a lot of important, very time-consuming stuff. Why would the Taxi Cab Commission be a high priority for you among all the important things that you're doing in your real life? And how could we be confident that you will actually do what other people have said they would do and then not follow through on?
Well, I can only answer that by saying that certainly if I've made the commitment, it's my responsibility, and I will make sure I carry out that commitment. And so my employer is well aware of this commitment, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that whatever committee meetings need to be attended, special meetings, and any other consideration for issues that have to do with the taxi cab, that I will make the time and effort to handle my responsibilities.
And so they've cleared this and are at least somewhat enthusiastic about your participation and not saying, well, we really would rather you don't do this, but, it's up to you.
My superior certainly has not made any indication that that would be an issue or that priorities would be an issue, but by the same token, if I know ahead of time that there are committee meetings for every month on a specific date and time, I will put that in my calendar and I will make sure that I will be there to perform my duties as a commissioner. And so, I understand where you're coming from, Councilman, but the best I can do is tell you that I am committed to this position. This would be my first opportunity in public service, and I do hold it in high regard.
And what about this is appealing and interesting to you? I mean, is it honestly just because you were asked to get involved in whatever position you could, or is there any particular interest that you had in the industry?
Well, I've been in practice of the law for about 13 years, and I am interested in moving into a different foray that involves performing more of a hearing officer type position or duty, and I feel that this would, even if this doesn't necessarily give me that sort of experience, it leads me in that direction. And in that regard, I find that it would be an extremely important step for me to take at this stage of my career.
And obviously, if for that purpose, if nothing else, you'd want to attend and
absolutely
and show that on your record,
yes.
and not follow the footsteps of some of the other commissioners that haven't done that.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weezer.
How do you like the LAUSD?
And that comes from the former chair of the board of the.
I've been there for 2.5 years, and it's been quite the challenge. And we've had highs and lows, but I do my job and I do my part, and I enjoy it. I can't say that anything beyond that.
There's no right or wrong answer. No.
You're right. You're very right.
Subjective on that.
Especially nowadays.
Yes, indeed. Okay. You support that? Okay. Well, thank you very much. I know we put you on the hot seat there about attending and everything else, but thank you so much for stepping up. We look forward to approving you in the full council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments, people? Anybody want to? Meeting to adjourn. Meeting's over. We voted unanimously. Yes. Did you see the one?